Page for Monday, December 18th, 2023. Thanks for starting your week with us. I'm George Gerbo. Israel is facing growing pressure to scale back its military campaign against Hamas. Then Wolfgang reports Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin traveled to Israel over the weekend and privately pressed the government there to more precisely define its goals in the Gaza Strip and to offer clear metrics for how and when it can shift to the next phase of the campaign. Additionally, British Foreign Secretary David Cameron and German Foreign Affairs Minister Annalena Baerbock publicly called for a sustainable ceasefire in the war. They underscored the rapidly rising global sentiment that it's time for Israel to change course, a sentiment that strengthened after Israeli troops mistakenly killed 3 Hamas-held hostages in Gaza on Friday. President Biden's new rule to end power plant emissions has encountered opposition from administration officials. Susan Ferricchio reports members of Congress have obtained hundreds of internal comments from unknown Biden administration officials who casted significant doubt ahead of the Environmental Protection Agency's announcement in May of the rule. Concerned administration officials who reviewed the rule said the EPA's proposal to end coal and natural gas-fired power plant emissions relies on technologies to replace fossil fuels or capture emissions that are either too expensive or not feasible on a large scale. It's been a rough 7 weeks for new House Speaker Mike Johnson, but despite his inexperience and initial stumbles, Republicans are in no hurry to replace him. Kerry Pickett and Alex Miller report Republicans grumbled last week at Johnson's navigation of divisions over renewing a crucial government spy power in the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. The Speaker ultimately yanked 2 competing bills from the House floor. Some lawmakers also fear the Republican is receiving bad counsel from his staff on proceeding with other key legislation, including the National Defense Authorization Act that split the conference but ultimately passed. Johnson was elected Speaker on October 25th after a rogue group of conservatives voted with all Democrats to remove Speaker Kevin McCarthy. The Republican conference is dealing with the reality that Johnson can't magically unite the conference any better than his predecessor. The admiral in charge of the Navy's largest fleet says U.S. forces in the Pacific are increasing multinational military exercises amid mounting fears among regional states over Chinese aggression. Bill Gertz reports 7th Fleet Commander Vice Admiral Carl Thomas says China is using greater military power to exert control over the region. Operations between the fleet and other foreign navies are increasing, as are joint patrols with French and Canadian warships in disputed East Asian waterways. And finally, a look at elections coming up this week in the Congo. Some of the more than 100 armed groups near the border of Congo and Rwanda are set to begin a 3-day truce negotiated by the Biden administration to allow for those elections to take place on Wednesday. Find all today's front page stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page or on the Washington Times app, and find us wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Washington Times in any major podcast app. You can also find us on social media at Wash Times for breaking news, sports, commentary, and more. For the Washington Times, I'm George Gerbo.